Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast once again. This is episode number 195, entitled Translate Your WordPress Website with Weglot. It was published on Thursday the 3rd of September 2020. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and the usual housekeeping just before we begin. If you wouldn't mind heading over to wpbuilds.com, there you'll find all of the content that we create, and we do create quite a bit of content each and every week. Most of it, I'd say 99% of it, is to do with WordPress. If you'd like to keep in touch with all of the things that we do, so the podcast, the news, and the webinars, and the giveaways, and so on, head over to wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Over on that page, you'll find a form, and it will enable us to keep in touch with you when we create new content. There's another form which we can use to contact you should we hear about a new deal in the WordPress space. There's also options on that page to subscribe to us on your favourite podcast player and join our Facebook group of over 2,600 very friendly WordPressers. Another page I'd like to mention is wpbuilds.com/deals. It's a filterable and searchable list of WordPress-related products, so it's plugins and themes, coupon codes for 20, 30 and more % off. So if you'd like something this week, maybe check that page out. I keep saying it's a bit like Black Friday, but every day of the week. Also, I'm trying to get a jobs area up and running. Head over to wpbuilds.com/jobs and you'll find a form there. And if you want to fill out that form, I will post your job for free on our website and hopefully get you some candidates. Another thing to mention is wpbuilds.com/advertise. If you would like your product or service putting in front of a WordPress specific audience, a bit like GoWP and A/B split test. If you're an agency owner struggling to grow and scale your agency, the team at GoWP can help. GoWP provides white label services to WordPress agencies to help them grow. And with their pricing, it makes doing things yourself seem pretty silly. Create your free GoWP partner account to learn more about their services and get free access to resources and templates to grow your agency, like lead magnets and landing page templates. Partner with GoWP and grow your agency. Do you want to set up your A/B split test in record time, like in a couple of minutes? Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. You can check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Okay, let's get stuck into the main event, shall we? This is episode number 195, I can't believe it. And we're talking with Augustin Prot from Weglot. It's a really interesting episode. I'm sure that many of you will have built websites before which have had the requirement to be translatable, to be read in multiple languages. Well, Weglot is a plugin that can help you do this. Augustin comes onto the podcast today to explain how it works, how he's built it, and all of its capabilities. It's a really in-depth discussion, and we get into the nuts and the bolts of how it all ties together. So, like I say, if you are interested in multilingual sites, this is a good episode for you. I should also add that he's very kindly given us a lifetime deal of 15% off the pricing. You have to use the coupon code WPBuilds and you'll get 15% off the first, the second, the third, well, every year that you subscribe to one of their plans. Also, I'd like to say that I'm launching a giveaway for 3 Pro licenses. That's 3 Pro annual licenses for Weglot, and you can find that by going to wpbuilds.com/win. It's a viral contest, so the more you share it, the more chances you've got of winning. But you never know, this might become yours, and you can test it out for free for a whole entire year. So that's 3 licenses at wpbuilds.com/win. Okay. Let's get on with the podcast, shall we? Hello there, welcome to the WP Builds podcast interview section. Thanks for making it this far. Today I am joined all the way from Paris by Augustin Prot. How are you, Augustin?
Very well. Thank you, Nathan. Very happy to be there.
You are very welcome. Now, Augustin is on the podcast today. We're going to talk about a couple of different things. We're going to sort of try and divide the podcast sort of in two. We'll see how that goes. But first thing to say is that Augustin is representing a company which is on the increase. He was telling me just a moment ago that they've now got their body count up to 20 members of staff. So it's very much on the ascendancy. And Augustin is from Weglot, which is a translation plugin. So first of all, I'm going to ask Augustin if we can talk about Weglot. What is Weglot?
Weglot is a solution to make any website multilingual. So it's originally built for WordPress with a dedicated plugin. And so basically you have a website in French, you want to have and to display it in English, you would use Weglot to do that.
Do you know if are there any kind of like legal requirements? I know that, for example, if you're in Canada, you have to produce things in both French and English. But beyond that, I'm not really sure. Is there any compulsion? So, let's say, for example, I am here in England typing out a website and I do it all in English. Apart from the how nice it would be to translate, I'm just wondering if there are situations where it's mandatory or compulsory.
That's a good question, actually. I do think that I'm pretty sure in Canada you have to in certain regions of Canada and Quebec, for example,
Yep.
you have for administration and any public organization, they have to display the content in French and English.
Yeah.
It's maybe the same for Switzerland, for example.
Yeah, that was going to be my next one, actually. I was wondering of Switzerland as well. Yeah, interesting.
You have same thing also, for example, in Morocco, the official administrative language. There are two official administrative languages, which are Arabic and French.
Ah, okay. And another one which comes to mind is Wales. I know that if you drive through Wales, all of the road signs, for example, and all of the documentation that you see on, paperwork that you receive is in both Welsh and English. Anyway, the point is, in some jurisdictions, it's mandatory. In most jurisdictions, I suppose you're just doing it simply to increase the reach of your website. So let's say, for example, we've got a shop and it's an international shop and you're shipping all over the world. It makes perfect sense to reach out to those visitors in French, in German, in Chinese and what have you. But not being particularly familiar with Weglot and how it works, how do I actually achieve that? How, for example, let's say that I've got a simple web page that I've built using the block editor. Let's go for that as opposed to a page builder. How would I actually interact with Weglot after installing the plugin? What does it do? How do I make things go to Chinese and French and German and so on?
Yeah, sure. Actually, we tried to build a solution that it's super simple to anyone to use it. So there are no frictions, technically speaking, and content on the content part. So how does it work? You're gonna tell Weglot what is your original language. So for example, in your example, English, you're gonna select the translated languages you want to add. So let's say French and German. And then Weglot is doing all the hard work. So we're detecting the content that is on your website. We're providing a first layer of translations. So it's machine-based. We're sourcing automatic translations from different providers, which are Google, Microsoft, DeepL, for example. And then we're displaying the page with the translations on it. So once you have that, you can manage the translations. So you can, if you know how to translate in French or German, you can just simply overread, edit, tweaks to have your tone voice and to have your corporate brand within your translated content. Or if you don't know how to do that, you can invite someone from your team, from your network that knows how to do translations in French and German. Or you can even hire a freelancer or professional translators to do this job. I mean, the ultimate goal is to provide all the tools to manage translations for our end users, so they can use automatic translations and human translations, either themselves or by involving freelancers, their local teams, their network, or professional translators.
I'm really interested in the automation side of things. And what I mean by that is I'm interested in how that actually works. So if, for example, I've written a simple blog post with just text and it's maybe 1,000 words, and presumably there's some, if you like, meta box, to use an old-fashioned term, underneath that content, and I click publish. So in the automated scenario, Weglot then goes out to one of the providers that you mentioned, so for example, Google or Microsoft. It submits the English, it requests a translation back into whatever language you've specified, and then it puts it into the post automatically for you. You don't have to do anything else.
Yeah, it's almost that, exactly. So what it does, it will not look into your WP admin. It will look at the HTML of the page. So for example, if you have a contact page, mywebsite.com/contact, and you translated and you selected Weglot for the French version, and you're visiting the page in French, Weglot will detect all the HTML, in the HTML, all the content, which is, it can be meta titles, H1, paragraph, whatever. It will send it to Weglot API. And then Weglot API is going to look at, do you have these translations for this content? If it does not exist, it goes to one of the machine translation providers. If it exists inside your Weglot account, it will get the translations that are related to this content and send it back.
That's amazing. So just to be clear, the post needs to be published in order for the API to be called. You can't, for example, get a translation within a post which you've scheduled for some point in the future.
I mean, there are ways to do that, but the default behavior, yes, it has to be published. But when we can provide ways to do that. So first one is we have a private mode, so you can activate a private mode so that you could private a page or a whole website, or you could also install Weglot on the pre-staging, pre-production environment if you have one. Or you can also use Weglot in the preview if you don't have any pre-staging, development environment. Okay. So you can actually do the translations before it's published.
I understand. So there are ways around it. Well, that's good to know, because there's quite a lot of the content that I produce that I write and then sort of put to one side, and it might be nice if I was translating things to sort of come back to it later and fiddle. In your experience, how quickly do those translations come back? Let's say, for example, I've written 1,000 words in English. I press go, all of your automated systems kick off. How long would it be before I can go back into the post or the page or what have you and see the translations in situ in the little meta boxes?
It would, on average, it would add 200 milliseconds to your actual page load in your origin language. But it really depends on if it's the first time you're visiting the page. So, for example, if we are actually doing the call to the machine translation providers, it takes a bit more time. If not, it takes less time. And we're working with a lot of caching solution. So, if you're using WP Rocket or any other caching solution, it will be as fast as any other cached page.
Yeah.
And
go on, carry on.
No, please go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, how long does it take for the actual translations to come back from, let's say, Google? So you call Google and say, I've got this text in English, please translate it. How long does it take for Google to come back and say, there it is?
It's really milliseconds. We actually wrote a blog post about comparing the different automatic translation providers. So I don't want to make. I'm typing right now to find this out.
That's okay.
on our blog. But yeah, I mean it's really a matter of seconds. Let me check if I can.
Oh, right. Okay. So, I mean, that's amazing. I thought it might be, a couple of minutes or half an hour or something, but
No, it's milliseconds.
wow,
Really.
that really is astonishing. So, the length of the article is not really important. It'll translate any length of text in a very, very tiny amount of time. And in your experience, how accurate are those translations? I'll give you an example. I use a third-party solution to translate what we are now saying from audio into text. So that's a very different process. It's turning audio into text, which I then put on the page as a sort of an accessibility thing so that people can see and read what it is that we're both saying. Now, typically, I would say that that's about 95% accurate, and it makes horrific errors on words. So, for example, Weglot, a word which it's not accustomed to, it will struggle with. It will probably come up with some complete nonsense for Weglot, and I will then have to go through and correct it. I'm just wondering how text-based translations, how accurate Google is, or these other providers are, in giving something back which you can be fairly certain is readable, because the embarrassing thing, I suppose, would be that if you rely on the automation and it comes back with something which is just horrible or slightly wrong, or just slightly off in such a way that it's a bit embarrassing, all of those kind of concerns, really.
I'd say that overall, it's really good. I mean, it's really readable, not horrible at all for 95% of the translations. Mm-hmm. But it really depends on different criteria. First is the languages. So, for example, if you're doing translations for French to English, or Spanish to English, or German to Spanish, these are languages that are really used on online web content. So there are a lot of data that are feeding the algorithm for Google and others. So it's more relevant because they have more data to rely on. But if you're looking to translate, I don't know, French to Thai, or French to Filipino content, yeah. It might be less accurate.
Yeah,
that's one point. The other one is it's getting better and better. I can remember when I was at school and trying to use Google Translate for my homework, it didn't work at all. I think I got C or E or even F grades for that. But I'd say that now it's grammatically correct. It makes sense. It's readable. Now it's not at the point where it's taking your company corporate voice or your brand voice and including in it. Yeah. And I think it would take a lot of time to do that because translation is like it's content, so it's super subjective, and it's part of how you present your product, your brand, and so on. So for it, it's very important that users can have their hands on it, and they can easily edit stuff at their own tone.
Yeah. I think that's an important point. If you are happy to let the machines do the work for you, basically it's fine. But if you want it to have that rise and fall, and that, as you describe it, company voice or a certain sense of humor or whatever it might be, then you really are probably going to have to still require a human being to do that. And Weglot enables you to do that, which is nice. In terms of creating a blog post with the block editor, that's all very straightforward, lots and lots and lots of text. But increasingly, we seem to be in a world where people are using more complicated solutions to create their WordPress content. Let's say, for example, a page builder. How does Weglot interact with more complex solutions, like, for example, Elementor or Beaver Builder? Is there a different process that you go through? What does that look like?
No, it's exactly the same process. I mean, from the very beginning, we focused on providing a turnkey, super easy solution to use and to install. And so the way it's working, which is a bit outside of the box, it's looking at the HTML page. So it's not looking at where the content is actually coming from or how it's been generated. So it allows Weglot to being independent of the solution you use to create the website.
Yeah.
We're just looking at the HTML page.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter if you're using Elementor, Beaver Builder, another page builder, or Gutenberg. It works.
How would I subsequently go and edit? So let's say, for example, I've produced a fairly complicated page in Elementor, and the HTML has been rendered. Weglot has done its thing, provided the translations. But where would they appear for me to edit? Do I have to go and actually edit the post or the page itself? In the sort of traditional editor, be that the classic or the block editor, or is there a kind of interaction with Elementor? Is there an Elementor section, for example, that we can interact with?
No, that's the point. We're not interacting with the website builders or page builders.
Got it.
So to manage translations, users are doing that into their Weglot account.
Got it.
We're providing a set of tools to do that. So there is a classic translations list where you have original content on one side and translations on the other side. And we're also providing, sometimes it's easier to visualize your page. So we have like a visual editor where you can actually see translations on your web page and edit them.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That clears that up. That's great. In terms of things like, I suppose one of the things I've seen many times on the internet, but don't seem to use too much, just because of the fact that so much content is created in English. There's a feature, often it floats to the top right where there's a little flag or something like that, and I could pick out the French flag and I would have a French website in front of my eyes. How does Weglot handle that? Does it kind of auto detect? Okay, this is a French IP address. Let's hand it over in French, but give me the option to kind of click an icon or something like that. How do end users interact?
We're providing a language button by default. And in our specific case, it's at the bottom right of the website. But obviously, you can put it wherever you want, and you can design it however you want. And so that's where visitors can select the languages. So, for example, if you have a website in English and you selected French as a translated language, you can click on the button, click on the French name, or FR if it's FR 2-letter code, or the French flag, or the three of them, if the three of them are selected, and it will change the page, the version of the page from English to French.
Got it.
Now we also added a feature to automatically detect the visitor languages. Because sometimes it's easier to just cut one action from your visitors if you want to improve the conversion rates. And so, for example, what we're using is we're not using IP geolocation because for us it's not the best practice since geography is not a language. So what we're using is the browser languages preferences.
Yeah.
Which is, it's fairly accurate. So, for example, if I'm French, my first language in my browser preference is French. So if I go to a website that's available in French and English using Weglot, it will be automatically displayed in French.
Good. That's the way to do it, isn't it? That's perfect. So if you've got your browser set up for German, you're going to see the German translation. One of the things I'm sure that people will be interested to know about is, so for example, the SEO consequences of these kind of things. So let's say, for example, it's difficult enough to get a purely German or purely English website to appear high up in the search engine results. But obviously, if you're selling products internationally, you would very much like it if the French and the German and the English and the Chinese versions were all ranking highly. Is there any sort of inbuilt capability which assists with SEO?
Actually, when we started Weglot out at the very beginning, we didn't have these SEO capabilities. So it was in 2015, way before we started the official company, by the way. But we worked a lot. So we applied and we followed Google best practice guidance. We make sure that the translated version of your page are ranked, detected, and SEO friendly for Google and other search engines. Okay. How we do that? There are three key points to apply. The first one is to have dedicated URL for the translated version of your page. So basically, we're using subdirectories to display your web page. For example, it's mywebsite.com/fr for the French version.
Got it.
Then you need to let Google know that there are other versions of the page. So we're using the Ahref lang tag to do that.
Yep.
And then the last point is, even if Google told us that it can crawl JavaScript dynamic content, it's still better to do server-side content. So in the source code, that's what we're doing. We're providing translations in the source code, so we make sure Google can see everything. You do not need to pre-render stuff or to do things like this. This way, you can be sure that all your translated versions will be ranked by Google.
Perfect. That sounds like a really intelligent way of doing it. Yeah, that's great. That's cleared that one up as well. One other thing you mentioned, which I'm interested to know about, is you talked about the automation and how Google and Microsoft and so on can do this. But if you chose to go down the more likely, I would imagine it's more likely to get 100% accuracy and be able to do your company voice and so on. If you go for the human angle, are there kind of companies that you associate yourself with that the plugin links to, so that you don't have to strike up those relationships yourself? You know, does Weglot enable you to reach out to a company who has expertise in translating to all these languages, and can it automatically fill in the language fields in Weglot once that third-party company has submitted it as translated?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the goal is always the same, is to provide all the tools for our end users. So if they want to do translations themselves and they want to use a third party, like a professional translation agency, to do that, and they don't have one they used to work with, they can just simply order professional translations directly from the platform, and we're sending this order to our vetted partners, and then it's automatically sent back when it's done, integrated in your account and in your website. You do not have nothing to do except ordering the translations.
Perfect. And presumably the billing and all of that is taken care of. You pay that provider and it's all done and you can stop thinking about it. Yeah, that's really nice. One sort of other thing that I wanted to mention was the pricing, because obviously it's important for people to know about how much this costs. I won't hold you to your pricing because sometimes these episodes go out, but what are the different plans that you offer from, right? I mean, I think you've got I know that you've got a free version on wp.org, but then you've got versions going from, more basic plans right up to enterprise. Let's hear about those.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. No shame to talk about pricing.
No.
We have a free and paid versions. We believe it's important to have users with low volume to be able to enjoy Weglot on their website. So that's why we have a free version. It also allows us to be present on the .org directory for plugins. Mm-hmm. And for the paid versions, it's mainly driven by volume today. So it's basically the number of languages you want, the number of translated words you need, the number of projects, websites you want to use Weglot on, and the number of team members you want to invite to your project. That's basically how you can have a fairly estimate of the amount of money you're going to spend with us. And it's starting at 10 euros a month, and it goes up to 500 euros a month.
Right. Okay. So the options really is the more translatable languages you wish to acquire, the greater the number of words, the bigger the increase. And looks, I don't know if it's true. I think you offer a discount, as so many companies do these days. If you pay annually, you basically pay just 10 months instead of paying for 12 months. So that's another way of making it slightly more affordable. In terms of the support that you offer, actually, I'll come to the support in a minute because it will link nicely into what we're talking about next. But I wouldn't mind, if it's all right with you, talking about the other things that you do outside of WordPress, because I know that we're a WordPress podcast largely, but we also tinker with other toys. And I know that you do too. So it's not just WordPress. This could be attached to other things. So, for example, Shopify. So feel free to tell us what else it can do outside of WordPress.
Thanks for mentioning that. Yes, we started Weglot as a WordPress plugin, but we also quickly saw that we received interest of using Weglot outside of WordPress. So we built a dedicated Shopify app to do the same, and it's working great too. And then we also decided to be able to offer our solution to any website using CMS or not. And we did build another way to integrate Weglot with subdomains. And so basically it's exactly the same than on WordPress. It's easy to use, but you can use that on any website. So if you're using another CMS or a custom website, you can use a Weglot.
Yeah, if you go actually to weglot.com/integrations, you'll see a really rather impressive list. So the notable ones for this podcast would be WordPress and WooCommerce. That's all taken care of. Nice to see that the products. It feels to me like WooCommerce would be a really superb way to deploy Weglot because, selling internationally is fabulous. But then you've got Shopify, Squarespace, BigCommerce. You can just implement some JavaScript onto presumably a sort of more static site. A couple of things I've never heard of in here. Jimdo, that's interesting. Wix, Weebly, Webflow, and then interestingly, a couple of other e-commerce solutions, Magento and PrestaShop, another CMS, Ghost CMS, and then this is nice, Help Scout and Zendesk. So you can translate your sort of help documents and your Zendesk, the way that you interact with customers. That's brilliant. Like that a lot.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, the whole idea is to any web application actually can use Weglot.
Yes, you're sort of being everywhere all at the same time, which is, really nice. Now, the segue that I wanted to make is, because I did say at the top we were going to talk about your business. So let's introduce it this way. One of the things which I always ask, because it's something which comes up again and again, is how do you deal with support? Because it's all very well, we subscribe for a standard plan at $99 and then we run into some hitch 6 months later and we want to know. We want to know what kind of capabilities you have. How is your support done? Are you dealing with chat? Are you on email? Is there a kind of like, do you respond within a certain period of time? And so on.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Before detailing how we handle support today, I think I want to mention that from the very beginning, support has always been super important for us. It's really in our DNA. I can remember with Remy, my co-founder, and I, during our first 6 months of Weglot, so first half of 2016, we were doing support, live chat, every day, almost every night. Whenever someone was asking for something, we were answering them. It was amazing because it gives you direct feedback, direct communication with your users. It's really key, and also because we did want to offer an experience that is not what we experienced when you go to your telecommunication company or any other public system. So it was super important for us, and it's still super important for us. So today we have a team of experts. They are 7, all based in Paris. We're only doing emails, ticketing support. We're not doing any more live chat support. We're also providing a very detailed and extended FAQ. So we have a 1 business day turnaround maximum. So if you're sending us an email between 9 and 6 GMT +1, we're answering you. There is no way you're not going to get an answer from us. It's super important to have everyone happy. And when I say everyone, we're answering and replying to all our users, including free ones. Even if we don't have the same level of priority and emergency, all users get an answer from us.
Okay, that's great. And you said 7, did you say 7 people simply in support?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's 7 people in support. And also because support is not only about replying to users, it's also about taking the temperature of what's working, what's not working, what should be improved. It's a fuel for the roadmap, for the product roadmap.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anyway, that's great. That clears that one up nicely because it's a big thing. You know, if you purchase something and you're on a monthly retainer or an annual subscription or whatever it might be, then you want to know that product is supported. So that's great.
And it is mandatory. I mean, the whole point of a SaaS product is that if you're paying a subscription and you're not getting the value for the money you're paying each month, you just go.
Yeah.
And that's it. And we don't want you to go. I mean, for a financial reason, of course, but more than that, we're trying to provide a value to you. So
yeah. Well, that's really nice to hear. So that leads me very nicely into the other part of the podcast that I wanted to cover, which is the growth, how you've managed to grow a business. I mentioned at the top that you've got 20 staff currently, and obviously you've decided to deploy roughly a third of them over to support, which is interesting. But let's rewind the clock. I'm going to go back, I think you said 4 years was when you started. Let's go back a little bit further than 4 years. There must have been a period of time prior to launching it where you decided this is what you were going to do, and you presumably joined forces. You mentioned a partner, Remy. Tell us a little bit about the journey. How did you decide to build a translation plugin for WordPress of all things? What was that all about?
So actually, the idea came from Remy, my partner and co-founder. He built the first startup, which was geolocation. I don't know how to say that in English. When you're like a Craigslist on Google Map.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yep.
So if you want to sell or buy small stuff from other people, you would use this app. He didn't go as expected, so they shut it down with his former partner. And when he shut it down, he told himself, okay, what was the most painful stuff I had to do when doing the web application?
Right.
And it was translating it. I mean, he did part of his studies in the US, so English was not the problem. But technically speaking, setting up the websites, managing translations, it was a nightmare.
Right.
So he told himself, okay, I should have like a simple, super easy to use service like the one you can have with Stripe, for example, for payment, but for translations. So the idea came like this, and it was first a JavaScript snippet that you would add in your HTML head. Mm-hmm. So we did co-working, we made people try it, and we got feedback about it. So it was the two feedbacks we had were it's not SEO friendly, and I have a WordPress. I don't know how to add the JavaScript. How do you have a plugin for that?
Right.
So that's how we actually discovered WordPress. We didn't know about WordPress at this time.
Okay.
So
right.
we built the WordPress plugin based on the feedbacks we received, and then it really started to work very well on a pure go-to-market distribution part, because we met the community, the WordPress community, which is which is full of kindness, by the way, and we had a good traction with users coming every day and liking the product. So we focused our energy and resources on WordPress for 6 months, from very early 2016 to mid 2016. And then when we had something stable, we decided to do the same thing on another technology. That's why we went to Shopify and we did an app. Mm-hmm. And then we decided to do the same but for any website. So we didn't have to build a specific dedicated integration for example, I don't know, for PrestaShop or for another CMS. Mm-hmm. I mean, at first we tried to do specific dedicated integration for other CMS, but it didn't work as well as for WordPress or Shopify. So we threw three months of work in the bin. I don't know if you use let's say
yes,
that, like,
that's the perfect way of describing it. Yeah.
because it didn't work at all. So we didn't have any traction, any user. So we just we thought, okay, we should build something that's working outside of technology and that doesn't need a specific integration. That's how we came with the new way of integrating Weglot. So now you can use Weglot on any website, WordPress or Shopify.
Yeah.
With 2 dedicated integration and one which is universal.
During this time, was it just you and Remy? Was it just the two of you trying to handle absolutely everything? So building, you've achieved the WordPress one, the Shopify one's managed, and the JavaScript capabilities are all done as well. But there's obviously the support that's going on. There's obviously, designing the new integrations, which we've talked about already. Just two of you at that point, or had there been enough growth for you to start to build up a team?
The first year we were not making enough money to hire anyone. We had an intern, Jonathan, after 6 months, and we were doing 80 to 90% of our day was support, only answering users. But it was a great problem. I mean, it would have been worse if we didn't have users.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
It was really a rich and nice problem. And so at some point when almost 100% of our day was only support, we decided it was time to start the team and to hire new people. And we also decided to raise a little bit of money. So we did a seed round with a mix of business angels and seed capital in France. And it allows us to hire in a healthy way the team. So we hired the first head of support and also a lead engineer. And then we started building the team with the business growing. We didn't want to do a big hirings going from 0 to 10 or to 20 without being sure that we were having enough work for them. So.
Right.
We did it progressively.
Yeah, and has that been a successful? You mentioned that you got some sort of seed money and what have you. From your experience, that was the right direction to take. There's no regrets with that. It didn't mean that you ended up giving a sizable proportion of your profits away. Clearly not, because you've grown. But would you repeat that process, going out and getting some capital at the beginning?
Yeah, I think so. I think to be 100% transparent, we've been profitable since we raised money. So on a pure economic standpoint, we didn't need it, but it gave us the stability and the healthy environment to do our first hirings. But also it gave us some smart money with smart people giving us advice and supporting us during not easy moment with the we had. So I would do it again, and also it gave us some dynamic, some momentum to keep growing and to keep giving energy and resources into this great adventure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure that a lot of people who listen to this have had notions of building a product and perhaps even got to the point where they had a working product and maybe it failed. Maybe they just decided not to bring it to market. Was that a fairly sort of scary decision? Do things like that, did it bother you that you were borrowing money, presumably with a some kind of requirement at some point to pay it back? Does that kind of stuff, did it keep you awake at night, or was it all very good?
I mean, if you're talking about specifically the raising money part, it's not scary. It's a bit. I mean, it's exciting. You need to sell your product to other people. You need to. The only thing it's defocusing. So if you want to do it right, you have to give it like 3 months, and one of the co-founders needs to be very focused on it. So you have less time to do other things. So you need to take this into account before going for that. Unless you have an amazing working product where all the VCs or business angels of the place are knocking at your door, it's the way it's going to happen. But no, it's not scary. It takes time and energy, but it's exciting.
Okay, so at some point you managed to reach 7. I don't know exactly how far into your journey you were, but I think you mentioned the number 7. Where do we go from there? How do we add the extra 13 employees? What have you been doing that requires? Is it simply growth that's required this? You've grown to the point where 20 people is what's needed to keep this going. Is it because you've got a healthy roadmap in the future, or is it what are the reasons? Why do we need 20 people at Weglot?
Yeah, I guess it's simply growth. Today we have since 2 days we have 4 teams, but before this Monday we only had 3 teams, which are the development team, the marketing team, and the support team.
Uh-huh.
It's a third of the teammates are in each team, so it's pretty balanced. And since Monday we have a head of sales who's coming in. But yeah, it's basically growth. So when we had more and more users and more needs at the support, we needed to strengthen the support team.
Right.
So we hired people, and then we did the same for the development part. With more and more API calls and more users, we need to have and also the roadmap with more features to improve or to release. Same thing for marketing. So, but we try to have like a virtuous circle. So new leads, new users to feed roadmap and products, and to feed new leads, new users, and so on. So far it's not. We didn't write down a plan to hire X number of people during the next 3 years. It's more about and by the way, we're not very good at anticipating our needs in terms of people with Remy. We tend to wait a lot before triggering the hire process, which is good and bad. I mean, it's good to be very sure about what you're going to give to new people coming in, but it's bad because sometimes you just doing too many things and you're not focused enough on where you can provide value for the company.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it really depends on people, on founders and on your growth dynamic.
Yeah.
It's basically growth.
Yeah, well, that's perfect. That's the kind of answer that you want to be able to give. If you could rewind the clock 4 years and answer that question, I think growth would be the exact reason you'd want to have support staff and everything. You'd want to be profitable and growing. So that's very pleasing. 4 years down the road, you've got 4 teams, you've got 20 employees, you've got a thriving business. Perfect. Just before, unfortunately, the time I don't know where the time went, but we're kind of at the sweet spot. Augustin, I was wondering if there's anything that we missed that you feel I desperately wanted to say that. If that's the case, please say it now. Otherwise, feel free to just sort of drop your URLs, your Twitter handles, your Facebook group, or whatever it might be. You can take the floor and say whatever you like.
Thank you, Nathan. Maybe mentioning that we're giving away 3 Pro license for a year. And we're also super happy to be on the hot deals page of WP Build. What we want to do is still to be the brick for multilingual and translation for websites, for WordPress, but also if you're using other technologies, feel free to try Weglot out.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so I should probably mention the URL one more time. Go to weglot.com, that's weglot.com, wpbuilds.com, and you can find out absolutely everything that you need to know. Augustin, thank you so much, not only for being such a marvellous guest and telling us everything about your business and your plugin, but also for offering those nice prizes, which we mentioned at the end. So you can go and check those out, wpbuilds.com/deals to find your 15% off code, and wpbuilds.com/win if the competition is still running. You can enter it. Augustin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nathan.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. It was very nice chatting to Augustin. Hopefully you've learnt some new information about how Weglot works and potentially whether it's something you'd like to adopt for your business. Don't forget, as I said at the top of the show, there's a coupon code, WPBuilds, if you would like to find 15% off for 1 year, 2 years, well, every year, frankly. It's just a recurring 15% off. You can find that on our deals page. Go to wpbuilds.com/deals, and you can search for Weglot using the yellow button at the top left of that page. Also, as I said at the top of the show, we're doing a giveaway, wpbuilds.com/win, because Augustin has kindly given us 3 pro licenses for 1 year. So go to that page and you may win it, wpbuilds.com/win. Okay, that's it for this week. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. Share it on Facebook. Use @WPBuilds if you go on Twitter. And also if you can rate us on your podcast player of choice. Apple Podcasts in particular seems to be very popular, as does Spotify. That would be enormously helpful. So join us again next Thursday for another podcast. We'll maybe see you on Monday for the WP Builds weekly WordPress news, the pre-recorded and the live version. I'm going to fade in some cheesy music and say bye-bye for now.